back, and we're moving into our second conversation for this morning. We're joined virtually, that is, by Carolyn Sandiford from the Belize Association of Planners, and we have with us representing the Belize network of NGOs, Senator Osmany Salas. Today, we are talking about their collaboration for the second Governance Summit. Good morning.
Good morning.
And welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning, and thanks for having us.
All right. Well, you know, I think there's clearly a lot to talk about on this topic, but let's go back into the first summit that you had and how you decided to put this together. It was through the Association of Planners?
That's right, and thanks again, Marlene and Gavin, for having us. And to remember that we actually had a first summit, so I don't have to say it. That's wonderful, yes. We had our first summit, which was to build capacity among civil society, of course, and civil servants to promote enhanced governance accountability. And basically at that summit, we focused on what were some national data sources, because the project is about improving data ecosystems. How we access data, how we create data to inform and influence decision-making and governance. And so at that first summit, we focused a lot on national data sources, from the using data at the policy level as well as at the neighbor level. We look at some of the contemporary challenges to governance and decision-making as it related to data. And we talked a lot about what would be some of the strategies for interagency networking, coordination, and collaboration. Because one of the greatest challenges we face, Marlene and Gavin, is that we don't share data. There's a lot of data available, but we don't share them. And so we talked about how we could collaborate, as well as we launched a set of micro-studies where small CSOs, small NGOs were able to apply for small grants to conduct research in urban communities. So that was the first one. Now, coming out of that one of the key issues that we found out was that we have many civil society organizations operating in Belize, and the senator can speak a little bit more to that. But they were in varying phases of capacity development. They were in varying stages of compliance, legal compliance. There was uncertainty as to whether they were registered or not, as well as there were many capacity issues relating to those organizations. So at the same time, we also realized that BNN was also building their capacity to be more effective in their representation at Parliament. And so we felt it would have been a great collaboration between our project and our association, the Belize Association of Planners, and the Belize network of NGOs, to build the capacity or to increase that capacity of civil society organizations for them to be more effective actors in terms of governance and decision making.
That's a great segue to Senator Salas, and I think one of the things I'd like to know, Senator Salas, I know when there was the establishment of the 13th senator, one of the exercises that the BNN did was to be able to decipher how many NGOs in the country, and we know there are a lot, but how many were actually in good standing. So talk to me about, or talk to us about where you've moved since then, because it wasn't as many that were in good standings to even qualify at that point.
Yes, Marlene. Well, at last count, and this is up to a few days ago, we got the latest list from the Attorney General's Ministry. You know, the registrar for NGOs is housed within the Attorney General's Ministry, so they administer all that information. So at last count, there were just over 175 registered NGOs. Now, based on submitting 2018 reports in 2019, we had just under 60 NGOs in good standing. Now, that's a very fluid situation because different NGOs have their annual general meetings, at different times of the year, and And so right now, if we look at the NGOs in good standing this year, based on submitting 2019 reports, I think that number might be changing on a week-to-week basis, especially now that the national lockdown is over. Yeah. So there are quite a few NGOs that have been waiting to have their AGM so that their financial audits can be approved, finalized and approved, and their good standing certification can be finalized. So for now, we are using 2019 figures. Yes. And good standing numbers right now stands at just under 60. So that goes to show you that we have a long way to go. And so, we were quite pleased when Carolyn reached out to us as a part of this project, this U.S. Embassy sort of CARSI-funded project that they have along with RTI International, and said, are you interested to partner? And we have been looking for a partner like that for almost 2 years. So we were delighted when Carolyn reached out to us, because the support we're getting will enable us to focus on exactly that. How many registered NGOs are there? How many are in good standing? How many are not? What are the issues? Why? What are the challenges to achieve good standing and to remain in good standing?
And those are some of the very same questions.
It's a perpetual challenge year to year.
Those are some of the very same questions I was about to ask you. I think, do you think that the establishment of the network of NGOs and the position of the 13th senator was kind of an incentive for NGOs to move away from their field work and try to get the office and administrative stuff in order?
Well, no, look, there are many NGOs that are field-oriented and will continue to be field-oriented. Yeah. And what we noticed when we, when we started to organize ourselves to elect the 13th senator and then to elect a steering committee, we realized how diverse the NGO community is, and the different challenges, needs, and aspirations that they have. But we also recognize, as is written within the NGO legislation, that we are all focused on sustainable human development. So yes, the need to elect a 13th senator galvanize the NGO community to start to get organized. So we realized after the elections over 3 years ago that the election was the easy part. The challenging or the difficult part was to organize the NGO community, find out what their needs, their challenges are, and work towards seeing how we can help those that need help. So the network is a terrific platform. It's a terrific forum for the established NGOs to assist the ones that need help, for that networking to happen. So we realized that the hard work really that we will have continuously moving forward is to work on strengthening our network, and as one of our two main goals, say, to work towards being a unified voice in the country for sustainable human development. So as I mentioned before on the show, what this COVID-19 pandemic has done and what crises like that create or let us realize is how important NGOs are in the development of our country. And when crises like the one we're going through hit us, we realize how big the gaps that government is not able to fill on their own. And this is where NGOs come in. So the need for NGOs will continue to be there. And as I have noticed over the last few months, the numbers have grown by close to 20%, and will keep growing. And Carolyn can tell you the number of civil society organizations in the country dwarfs the number of registered NGOs. There are so many other civil society organizations in Belize that may be only registered by name, or may have only taken the first step to register as a limited liability company, as a non-profit under the Companies Act, but have not taken the next step to register as an NGO under the NGOs Act. So there are really hundreds more civil society organizations that are not registered under the NGO Act. So this project that Carolyn her organization is leading is working at in a manner of speaking, spreading the word
Yeah.
to civil society and offer them guidance on the steps they can take to register and become active, and what that means,
Yes.
what the registration then means,
Yes.
And I think that we can segue there before we get into all the details of the summit. Carolyn, perhaps you can talk to our viewers a little bit more about who the Belize Association of Planners is and the work that they do.
Thank you a lot, Gavin and Marlene. And I am on the show so often and I wear so many hats sometimes.
right.
I think my message sometimes becomes so diluted. Yes. But the Belize Association of Planners, of course, is a registered nonprofit organization. We represent professional planners in Belize. And one of the key reasons why we came to being is that as planners, we became very concerned about the trajectory for our country. We felt that we were moving in a way that was unplanned. And if you're moving your country in a direction that is unplanned, haphazard development, you end up with many of the contemporary challenges that we have. Issues of poverty, crime, squatter communities, inefficient urban sprawl, incompatible use of land, and so on and so forth, which all affect the quality of life of people and communities. So we felt that it was important, but one of the things we realized, Marlene and Gavin, is that if you ask somebody what a planner do or does, they question everybody eyes open. But if you say to someone, if you're sick, where do you go? Oh, they go to the doctor. Or if you have an issue with the police and they lock you down, who do you go to? The lawyer. But nobody was linking the ills of the city, of the rural communities with the absence of planning. So planners, in a nutshell, we organize space. Space is land. We organize space to respond to the needs of a population. A population, as it grows, require land for housing, for education, for healthcare, for transportation, for leisure, to work, to worship, and so on, and even to bury your dead. You need land for that. And it's how you organize land in such a way and apply certain standards and use land that have the capacity to be developed that you end up having successful communities. Particularly what we do, we champion marginalized and vulnerable communities because planners are always of the view, and many would agree, that you have communities that are well laid out, nice roads, nice housing, have all their safety issues, the electricity, the water, the proper drainage, and so on and so forth. And then you have so many other communities that lack these services, where municipal authorities are not performing their jobs, where the government itself is not actually spearheading any effort in terms of planning these communities and providing for their growth. And so that is where our association comes in. We have been doing 3 key programs: our urban resilience program, our coastal resilience program, and what we call our urban observatory program. And this program that we do in terms of improving data ecosystem links to what we call our National Urban Observatory Program, where we have data that we can use for, to design programs and projects for strategic intervention.
I'd imagine how that can help from both ends. You're linking existing NGOs or CSOs with information, and they also have a wealth of information, because most of the times with their projects or the proposals, they have to be able to put their information together. But from a planning standpoint, Carolyn, explain to us how essential it is to have an organized group of NGOs, or knowing where they contribute and how much they contribute.
Marlene, that's an excellent question, because one of the challenges we face in Belize also is the silo approach to development. Each organization is sort of doing their own thing. The government is doing its own thing. NGOs are doing their own thing. And so what you find, there's a lot of inefficiency, there's a lot of duplication. Oftentimes, because we are not sharing information, you're not knowing what works, what do not work, who has done what report has been done. I can tell you, Marlene and Gavin, and Senator will agree to this, that there is just millions and millions of dollars that we spend in this country preparing a lot of varying reports, technical reports, research reports on numerous issues, which you find just being done over and over again because left hand oftentimes don't know what right hand is doing.
That's right.
So the collaboration in terms of planning, we look at things holistically. Planners look at a community, a region, even at a country level. We look at how is it that you can integrate the physical, which is the land forms and so on and so forth, the social, which is the people and their needs for education, for healthcare, and so on and so forth, the economic side of things, which is your livelihood, your jobs, as well as governance. And when you integrate all of that, it becomes what we refer to as development planning. And there are varying actors within this. And as the senator mentioned, you have the government who has a duty and a responsibility to provide certain services to the people. Particularly, they have a duty to deal with underserved communities, to create the balance, the equity. So you have the state, and then you have the NGO society who is also working in various forms of human development, whether it's Red Cross dealing with disaster issues, whether it's an organization dealing with hunger, whether it's another organization that is dealing with persons with diverse abilities, or the LGBT community, or persons who are mentally challenged, and so on and so forth. But they are all working in silo. So planning tends to bring people together, and this is what the summit is all about. It's all about how, as governance, as I've often said to people, if you look at the 70s and the 80s, everybody relied on government for everything, literally. But over the 90s and now, we've had a merger, a rise. I think Senator mentioned that percentage increase of NGOs and civil society who are doing a lot. So what you now find is that if we now have what we call governance instead of government, is that something that our people have totally transitioned to? But that is really where we are. So governance now becomes how all the actors in that space are integrating, interrelating, and working together, finding their specific areas. So at the end of the day, we are addressing issues like quality of life, reducing poverty, addressing crime and violence, and so on and so forth.
And I'd imagine,
and so that then becomes the key for us as planners.
And I'd imagine it also offers an opportunity to maximize resources. Senator Salas, one of the criticisms I'd imagine is that the NGO community, they tend to be very territorial about their work. You know, I'm doing something and this is kind of my space. But what it actually lends to is duplication of efforts and by extension maybe a wastage or a lack of maximizing resources. Is that still a situation that exists today?
Yeah, that has been a challenge, a perpetual challenge over the years. But I want to go back to the project that Carolyn was speaking about in relation to that, Marlene. Two key activities that we will implement that is being funded under the project of which the summit forms part is for our network to have our own NGO fora or forums, no? One, and the process to prepare for our very first forum, which we hope to have next month, is already underway, where we have reached out to our community and we're asking them to share with us what their internal strengths and weaknesses are, what they see as the external opportunities and threats from their organizational perspective, but also look at the current NGO legislation and know how they feel that is working for them, or what they feel the weaknesses are and where we need to strengthen. So we have a survey out as we speak to among our membership, and within the next couple of weeks, we hope to analyze the results and then present this at our forum next month, working towards like a strategic action plan on what we need to do moving forward to become even stronger, more unified, ensure that the duplication of efforts is avoided as much as we can. Now, from the environmental NGO perspective, and we have quite a few of such NGOs in our community, we see examples of collaboration, and that has happened over the years. You may recall the Coalition to Save Our Natural Heritage, when they all worked towards this offshore oil exploration ban, and they were highly successful after a number of years. And your coalitions like that, you find examples of that. So they are good examples where NGOs have seen the need to collaborate. It also helps when funding organizations strongly encourage joint action, joint work. So for example, the Protected Areas Conservation Trust has, from last year or even earlier, issued a call to the NGOs to work together to submit joint project proposals, larger scale. So because just the management of our natural resources, it makes no sense to manage in silos, right? To operate in silos, because the pressures that we face in our natural resources knows no boundaries. And the same goes for other facets of sustainable human development. So that is the opportunity we see, and are working towards addressing
we see
the challenges that we face as a community.
And I think there are a lot of established NGOs that are well known, but we see very often where community groups kind of pop up and they start working, they register the name of their association. How do they fit into this?
That's a good one, and I think this is exactly where we are with the summit, and Gavin, because one of the things that came out of the first governance summit was this uncertainty as to where you are legally. There are organizations that, just as you said, pop up, and what they find out is that in order to engage in any capacity with a donor, someone who wishes to contribute, etc., they don't want to be dealing with individuals. They want to be dealing with an organization. So they would register, and then sometimes they simply register a business name, which does not make you a non-profit organization. And I think this is one of the things that we came up with, where we realized there are quite a number of persons who, when you would say, well, are you registered? They would say, yeah, but in reality, they weren't registered. They were simply having a business name. They're not right.
So it's a multi-tiered process, and as Carolyn just said, there are many groups that don't really grasp that, So yes, if we include in the list of what we would call civil society organizations, the number is huge. If we include only those that those that have only registered their names, or those that have to register as an NGO, really is a two-step process, as I mentioned earlier. You have to register under the Companies Act, and once you have that, then you apply to register under the NGO legislation. And there are many that have not taken that first step. There are many that have not that are operating just with the business name registration. And now, what we are finding out is that the company's registry is becoming stricter now in implementing the legislation. They will no longer register the business name of a group if that group does not intend to be a full-fledged organization.
Well, I think that's
or if they do not intend to engage in a business. And I encountered this from personal experience. For example, I am part of a civil action group here in Orangewa called the Friends of the New River, where we are working towards the New River restoration and building public awareness in relation to the state of the river. And we wanted to register our name, for starters, and we were not able to do that. So we have realized that we need to go full-fledged forward to register as a nonprofit. And that creates opportunities, because, for example, you can access funding for one, but then it creates challenges in that you have on a year-to-year basis, especially if you have exceeded the threshold, which I think is $25,000. You have to do your audits. You have to have your books in order. You have to submit your annual reports. It's not not very
You have to
difficult,
be
but
committed to
means that
the
you have
work,
be
I
well
guess.
organized.
Yeah.
Marlene, sorry?
I was going to say it forces you to be committed to the cause as well.
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah, but can I go back to something, because I also think that, you know, we've come a long way, and I think it's important that we don't function under the naivety that many of us still have, which is that people get together to create community groups or civil societies or organizations, and we assume that it's with best intentions. But when there's soliciting taking place, when somebody's asking you for money or goods, if they're not registered, you have no accountability. I mean, I think one of the clear examples we'll see in maybe a few weeks, where all kinds of organizations will be asking for back to school supplies, and then, you know, you see photos and that's it, but there's no transparency as to how that money is used, or to whether the receiving population was the one in most need, or maybe they'd already been served by another group as well. And I mean, it's just a very basic example, but I think that it can allow for a more formal side of what people aim to do.
In relation to that example, Marlene, I know several groups that are doing excellent work, much needed work, but have not registered, and so are not able to open a bank account, for example, right? To open a bank account now, it's a stricter process. You have to show your corporation documents, your name, registration, and if you don't have that, with the FIU requirements, you are not able to do that. So some group members may resort to hold the money or put it on their personal account, which is not good practice, as you said, for transparency and accountability.
We can be trusting, but we don't want to be foolish.
Yes.
And I think those are some of the key issues that we felt was important, because I think Osmany hit the nail on the head when he said there's quite a number of groups that are really doing great work.
Yeah.
And we must also accept, Osmany and Gavin and Marlene, that it's not everybody who wants to register. Yeah. There's some groups who are quite happy in their own little world, I call it, doing the things that they enjoy doing in their community. And I think it is how we are able to bring everybody together in terms of a common cause. And I think this is where the planners work, and it is something we have been making every effort to bring across to development partners, that you will have many actors within the urban space, within the rural space. And it's how we ensure everyone who is doing what they're best at doing are able to function. You don't want to, yes, there will always be issues in terms of persons who may not be getting in it for the right purpose. I mean, please, it's at the highest level of government. Let us not fool ourselves on that. It's at the highest level. People get in not for the right purpose.
Yeah.
But at best, as planners, one of the things we do, we work with communities in terms of trying to create strategies and action plans for them to, where they would have identified, prioritized the things that they want to do in their communities. And then you identify who is actually doing what. And I think it is strategies like this, as we move forward as a society and we move forward as a country, we're able to get the best out of. But as Osmany had mentioned earlier, civil society do play a great role, an awesome role in terms of our development process. And so this collaboration is really about trying to strengthen that role that they play. And they play it at different levels. They play it at a legislative level, because you have the senator who is representing civil society, and not civil society, representing NGOs, because they're the Belize network of NGOs. But that representation in itself has a place to influence and shape legislation. Yes. And so the more NGOs and civil society are registered and brought into the formal process, the more their voices can be heard through the senator in terms of on the floor. And what other areas in which one has to look at perhaps is how you create little cooperatives at the community level, where you have varying NGOs who don't necessarily want to go beyond that, or who don't have the capacity, how they can be mentored and assisted through the same BNN in terms of working their way up from that infancy to organizational maturity.
Yeah.
And if they don't wish to do that, how can some organization or some entity, which would be like, say, an umbrella or a hub or a cooperative, because we are strong, we ought to be strong on cooperative movements, how they can form as a cooperative and pool their resources together. We do it with syndicates, we do it with so many other things. And so this project is really about that.
Yeah.
And the summit that we are having, which is tomorrow, is really about building and enhancing that capacity. One of the, if I can just share a quick couple things that are going to happen at the summit.
Okay.
It's going to be a combination of panel discussion, presentation, discussion, and working groups. The senator went through a process just now that speaks of formalization. So we are going to have representatives of the BNN, the Attorney General's Ministry, and the Financial Intelligence Unit, who will be talking and working, showing the processes that goes into not only incorporating and registering, but also what you have to do to operate, because it allows, as Senator mentioned, things like filing and so on and so forth. We'll be working on capacity building, how you build your capacity to be more effective. How do you analyze what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? We will launch a key thing, Senator, the NGO directory. And perhaps you could quickly pick up in there and talk just, then I will just go ahead with the other thing.
Sure, and just so I don't forget, the Belize Association of Planners is our most recently registered NGO. So Carolyn Association has joined the network.
Yes, so can't be pushing it and don't join it, can I?
And the summit is also open, Marlene and Gavin, not only to registered NGOs, but to any civil society organization. So I'll personally take part on the panel discussion, as Carolyn just mentioned, on incorporating, being in good standing and operating, and also in the working session later in the afternoon that will give the participants the opportunity to ask questions. And I'm very pleased that the Attorney General's Ministry will be represented, because they'll speak on the Companies Act and the NGO Act, and as well as the Financial Intelligence Unit, which is also one of the requirements to remain in good standing. No? But the directory, that's something we are very excited about. We are getting closer to the day when, with a click of the mouse, you can access this directory on the BNN website.
Yeah.
That will give you the list of registered NGOs and other organizations, where they are located, the work that they do, the geographic focus that they have, their contact information, etc., so that anybody out there who would want to know, for example, which NGOs are working on, providing health support or in the health sector. You go there and you get that list. Which NGOs are working in the environment? You go there and you find out which NGOs or where are individual NGOs located, for example. You find that information. So,
or even identify gaps. If I look into Punta Gorda, what NGOs are there? Maybe I see something that's needed there.
Yes, exactly. Because the NGOs listed there indicate where in Belize they work. If it's national, just a district, just an area within the country, and all that there it will be available. Will be launched tomorrow, right, Carolyn?
Yes, that's right.
It'll be online?
Yes, that's very exciting. Our summit will be online, actually. So we'll be launching that, and we'll be talking also a little bit about, at the summit tomorrow, we'll be talking a little bit also about open data sources, where you can find data. In other words, it's not a case of somebody hiding data, but whether it's a Statistical Institute of Belize in Belize, or what other organizations, and even those international sources of data that we can access. A very key presentation will also be how we use data to manage COVID-19. We're in the midst of a COVID-19 pandemic. Dr. Manzanera and team are not just talking off the top of their head, and advising the government from outer left field. They're actually using data to do that. So it's where they source their data, how they source their data, how they use that data to manage COVID-19. So that will be with us. Yeah. We'll be also talking grant writing. Quite a lot of the work that NGOs do are linked to donor funding. Yeah. So you have to write proposals. Our association, I like to say, have started as a professional association. We knew nothing about grant writing, but over time we are getting there little by little. So we ourselves need that help. Yeah. And we have someone from Love Foundation who has been very successful in doing that, Deborah Sewell. She'll be working us through that process. Mm-hmm. We'll also be talking about alliance building, fundraising, and organizational sustainability. You know, Marlene, the work that we do, NGOs do, it is not work that is for one person. Yeah. Sometimes you need to create alliances and build partnerships. You need to fundraise. And you made a very valid point earlier when you said people just get up one day and say we're a family group or whatever. Mm-hmm. How do you sustain that cause, that passion? So we'll be talking about organizational sustainability. Yeah. We'll also be looking at how you use data to do policy, right policy, and we have two of our grantees, Emergent Core and BAPTA, doing their presentation on their studies. Nice. So it's going to be a great day tomorrow. We start at 8:30 it goes to 2:30. Wednesday, the 22nd. Anyone wishing to join us, they can log on to the BelizePlanners.org. There's a link to registration. They can email us at BelizePlanners@gmail.com for the link. They can contact me at 670-0509. They can WhatsApp or message or call. It's going to be virtual, so you can sit in your office, do some work, and at the same time, join us for this summit. Yeah. Well, it's also going to be online. Yeah. We're going to do it online. And by the way, just as a little something, you know, when you normally do the summits face-to-face, Marlene and Gavin, people normally get their little snacks and breakfast and lunch. Well, this won't happen at this one.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell us about some delivery system you established.
This is where I'm going. What we are going to do, we're actually going to have some gifts. Okay. Some baskets and so, because they said, well, we had a little budget for the dinner, it ain't working out. So we're going to use that, and people like Osmany also made a little donation and said, well, you can come have dinner at the restaurant. And so we have quite a number of gifts that we'll be sharing in lieu of the breakfast and the dinner and the snacks.
So you know what that means? It means you can quiz people as you go along to make sure they're paying attention.
Exactly.
So we do.
So join us all, the NGO community and civil society. Yeah. Join us tomorrow.
You can also go on the Belize Network of NGOs Facebook page, and you have the registration information there also.
Excellent. Well, we wish you the best of luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
And thank you for having us, Marlene and Gavin.
All right. And when we come back, we'll take that break. And when we come back, we're going to be joined by representatives of Expedia who are talking about their relief programs in COVID-19. So please stay tuned.